Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ruby, this is Ruby Red, and today we're doing a little tag video. We're just gonna chit chat for a little bit. I was tagged by Amy from A Star Reads to do the why haven't I read this book yet tag. This is a pretty short, little tag where I'll just have to admit to some things, which is fine. And I will, of course, link Amy's channel down below as well as the original creator of this tag. Amy, thank you for tagging me. If you are, for some reason, not already subscribed to Amy's channel, definitely consider doing so. Highly recommend. One of my faves. She posts amazing content. She's so lovely and wonderful, and she has good taste in books. So really, what more could you ask for in a person? Anyway, let's talk about the books. Let's talk about why I haven't read these books. There are 5 categories of book in which I will talk to you about them, and I am choosing to interpret this as like only about books that are on my physical TBR, my bookshelf, because I did not want to dig through my whole Goodreads, to be honest. Yeah, this is a bookshelf situation, and in my opinion, I am bad at reading the books that I bring into my house, that I either buy, that I get from a little library, etc. Because I mostly read on my Kindle because I can read it in the dark at night without disturbing my partner. So yeah, I don't do as much daytime reading as we would all like. Whatever, let's just talk about why I haven't read these books. All right, first prompt is to tell you why I have not read this classic. And I don't have a ton of classics on my shelf that I haven't read. To be honest, I did buy a bunch of classic books at one point, but I have been reading them and enjoying them. And so I do technically have one unread Jane Austen on my shelf. I did go ahead and buy a second copy of Emma, but I've read Emma, so we're not counting that. We are instead going to talk about why I have not read To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. Yeah, this is a short classic. It's also not a super old classic. I think it's only about 100 years old, so that makes it potentially more accessible to the modern reader. And the reason that I haven't read this book, which by the way was gifted to me by my friend Aubrey, thank you so much, Aubrey. I am sorry I haven't yet read this book. Anyway, the reason I have not yet read this book is because I had a little bit of a situation with Mrs. Dalloway. I tried to read it at one point when I did not have the brain power to read such a rambling book. So I put it down for a while, and then it was on my TikTok TBR board for so long. So the whole time that it was there, I couldn't possibly consider picking up a different Virginia Woolf when I was ignoring that Virginia Woolf, But I've also read Orlando by Virginia Woolf, and I really liked that. So I'm sure I'll like this. I just haven't read it yet. But ever since I did read Mrs. Dalloway, I have been eyeballing her, thinking about her a lot. And I think, this could happen someday soon. Okay. I think this is also a book on my 30 by 30 list, and you might notice a trend among the rest of these books. So next, let's talk about why I have not read this fiction book. Now, I don't actually have, well, I do have kind of, I don't have very much fiction on my bookshelf that has been there for a long time. Most of the books that have been like lingering on my shelf that I just like haven't read are nonfiction. And one of the big ones though, and it is big, and it is on my 30 by 30, is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. This book it's comically large, to be honest, when you look at it next to my head. I haven't read this obviously because it's huge, and also because I really wanted to do a vlog where I would like a spoiler filled like reading the longest book on my TBR vlog, because I feel like most of the people watching this channel like are not interested in reading this if they haven't read it already. Like there's no desire to read it, so I feel like it could be fun to have like a spoiler vlog where I like can really get into the nitty-gritty of my thoughts and feelings of this huge book. I'm actually not gonna hold it up this whole time. It's that big. I haven't read it. Well, I have started it when I was in high school, I think. I read like 100 or so pages, and then I just was like busy in school or whatever, so I put it down and I never picked it back up. And then one of my cousins told me it was like one of her favorite books ever. And I was like, you know what? Let's give it a go. I love its historical fiction. It is a subgenre that I really like, which is what I call very historical fiction. It takes place in the 1300s, so that was a long time ago. And I like, that's fun for me to read about, like really old stuff. And I know that it's about cathedrals and I don't know what else, but it's all very interesting to me, and it's like kind of a classic, I feel like, in some circles maybe. But yeah, I want to read it. That's it. I haven't yet because it's enormous, but I would like to, and yes, it's on my 30 by 30. Okay, now let's talk about a nonfiction book that I haven't read yet. For this, I will talk to you about The Argonaut, because this is one of the nonfictions that's been on my shelf for a long time. Well, really not that long, maybe like a year and a half, but I started it. My bookmark is in here. I started it and then I just stopped reading it. I don't know, I was just like in other stuff, wasn't like super enthralled by the writing. And then right around that time, I started getting some texts from my mom who read this book telling me about how it was like not that good. But then more recently, when I saw her and she mentioned it, she said it was really good. It's just that Meg Lohman is maybe not as good of a writer as Hope Jaron, who wrote our other favorite book about trees. So yeah, I do still hope to read this, but I just haven't yet because it's a hardback and my mom scared me off of it for a little bit there, but I'm back on, and yeah, it's interesting. Trees, we love them. That's all I can say about that. Okay, next we're going to talk about why I haven't read this genre book yet. So there's a fantasy book I've had on my shelf for not like a super long time, but long enough that I could have read it by now, and I have chosen not to. And that book is Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. So this is the third book in the Live Ship Traders series, and I finished the second book, Mad Ship, in I think October of last year, and part of me wanted to just pick this right up immediately, but I was at the time in the middle of my 75 hard reading challenge and this didn't apply, or maybe I hadn't sourced it yet. Maybe it took me like another month or two to find a copy that I wanted to have the matching editions, which is like not something that I care about usually, but I have all three of these. I love this series. I love the first book and the second book so much. I like truly, I don't know why I haven't read this bit, but the reason I'm still not reading it is because around the time that I was finishing the second book in this series, Connor, my partner, was starting the first book, and at this point, Connor is very close to finishing the second book and will potentially want to immediately pick up the third book because some people just read like that. So now I have to wait until Connor reads it, I think, before I can read it. So that's why I haven't yet read this genre book. Okay, and the final book, the final prompt is, why haven't I read this book that I have owned for the longest? And this is a book that's also on my 30 by 30 that I think I purchased in 2015. And that is The Terror Dream by Susan Faludi. This is loosely, this book is about feminism in like post 9/11 America, like immediately post 9/11. And I bought this book and I read half of it for a class that I took when I was in college about gender, and yeah, I read several parts of it, almost half the book I think, and I wanted to finish it, but whatever, I was busy, I was in school. And then I also, like, the topic in this was very challenging. A lot of the things that we talked about in that class specifically, like, I would often leave that class feeling like just sick about like the world. And so yeah, this was a tough read. Again, like, that was so long ago. So do I totally really remember? Probably not. I don't know, this just did something different with like journalistic writing that I hadn't read before, and it impacted me very strongly, and so I do want to like honor that impact by revisiting it. But I also know that like the longer I don't read it, the less relevant it's gonna be. I mean, because it's about such a specific period in time, it still could be interesting to read, but it's just like, it just gets more and more out of date the longer that I don't read it. So hopefully I will read it soon. Again, it's on my 30 by 30, but my will to revisit this book and read it like is waning because it's been what, 8 years? So yeah, I don't know about that, but I have this book on my shelf. I have not read the whole thing, and now you know why. Kind of. Okay, so that is all the books that I wanted to talk to you about. That's the whole tag, except that now I would like to take a moment and tag some of my friends that I want them to spill the beans on their own bookshelf secrets and sins. So I am tagging friends that I am interested in hearing their answers specifically regarding their physical TBR. So I don't care about your Goodreads TBR is what I'm saying. Because anything goes over there, okay? I want to know about the books that you've brought home that you haven't read yet. The people that I want to hear from are Bailey from Is Bailey Reading. Spill, girl. Next up, I would like to tag Lizzie from Lizzie's Literary Life. Spill. I know that Lizzie, like me, potentially doesn't have an extensive physical book collection. So I'm just like kind of interested to know what makes it onto your shelf, but then not to your eyeballs. And finally, I want to tag Danielle from Danielle Reads, who I'm pretty sure has a huge book collection, and I would just like to hear the tea on what has or has not been read. Okay. And again, I want to thank Amy for tagging me in this video, and make sure you check out her channel. And also, I'll see you back here soon, hopefully for another video. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.